All right, what is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to Bring the Juice. Well, guys, you've already seen some of the instant reactions to actually all of the Indianapolis Colts defensive guys they brought in to interview for defensive coordinator. In total, the Colts have so far brought in 5 different candidates. Those candidates are as follows. They are Dennis Allen, Ephraim Banda, Lou Anarumo, Steve Wilks, and then most recently, who interviewed on Wednesday, Wink Martindale. So, Derek, definitely a wide pool of guys. I will say off the top before we kind of just react and talk about each of these guys, you definitely notice a common trend here with all these different guys. Well, pretty much all of them. I know there's like an exception to this, but I think the biggest thing I notice here, Derek, is a lot of veteran coaches that you're bringing in, a lot of guys that have been defensive coordinators in the past, have had success doing so, and also some guys, and a lot of these guys who have focused and have had primary focuses on the secondary, which I think is very telling as well. So there's been some common trends. There's a few guys that kind of don't fit certain molds, but fit other molds. But those are kind of some of the 2 most common things amongst most of these candidates here. So what are your thoughts about this pool so far? Are there any other guys that maybe you want the Colts to consider bringing in for an interview?
You know, I've heard a couple of guys. The secondaries coach for the Broncos could be an interesting one there that I could potentially see, with the opportunity to go for that one. But I don't know. I like the pool that the Indianapolis Colts have had right now. A good mix of some guys that don't have a ton of experience, but a couple of guys that have a giant amount of experience at the position of defensive coordinator. And it definitely could lead for a very interesting argument for the Indianapolis Colts and their defensive coordinator position. I know you and I had already kind of ranked these guys a little bit on where we would have them in this process as of right now. I definitely would be interested in, a couple of these guys. But as far as like anyone else that's outside of who we've asked so far, I don't know. I kind of like the guys that we've had right now. And if somebody else wants to give me a comment on somebody else that they want to look at, then I'd be happy to oblige and take a look at.
Yeah, and 4 out of the 5 candidates have been defensive coordinators in the past. And you have a couple different guys, Derek, that have been head coaches as well. So that is definitely interesting there. And I think you talk about some of the common trends, talking about some veteran guys, talking about some guys that specialize in the secondary. Also, another one is, Derek, a lot of these guys are super aggressive in their approach. I mean, complete 180 from what the Colts have had the last really 7 years. Really, between Gus Bradley and Matt Eberflus, it's been that long since the Colts have had an aggressive defense. So very obvious their approach has completely shifted 180 degrees. But when you look at each and every one of these guys, Derek, I just want to kind of point to some of these guys and kind of where their last stops were or where they currently are right now. So, when talking about Dennis Allen, he was previously with the Saints as their head coach the last couple seasons. But prior to that, Derek, he was their defensive coordinator for a long time until getting promoted. I believe it was in 2022 he got promoted. So he was their defensive coordinator for a long time. And he was a guy that routinely in the last couple years especially had the Saints really running on all cylinders on defense. I mean, they were a top 5 unit in a couple different categories the last 2 years. He was defensive coordinator there, and he's had some experience. And we've said this before. I said this on the main channel, but some guys make better coordinators than head coaches.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious that Dennis Allen, he's had 2 previous stops as head coaches, hasn't had a lot of success. But Derek, he's a guy that has had success at when he is primarily the defensive guy, calling the plays and stuff for the defense. So what are your thoughts there on Dennis Allen, I guess? We'll start with him and his resume. What are your thoughts there on him and kind of his approach and what the Colts will be getting there?
Yeah, like you said, take out the head coaching stuff. His last few seasons with the Saints as their defensive coordinator was some of the best seasons that the Saints have had since the early 2010s, even maybe potentially before that, when it came to the best defenses that we've seen in Saints history. So, when it comes to Dennis Allen, he's got a lot of repertoire. He's got the background to show for it. And that's why you got to like a guy like Dennis Allen.
Yeah, he's very aggressive as well. He would definitely be more of the attacking type of coordinator. And obviously, he can get the best out of his guys. He's done that. He's proven that in the past. He's had that track record. So, and Derek, I think you can never discount the head coach experience. I think it is something to consider as well. I mean, especially for a first-time type of guy like Shane Steichen, how much wisdom could be learned there, even if it didn't work out, just having a guy that's been around for a while, that's had that experience, that could be very valuable for a guy like Shane Steichen. And just being able to have a guy that's seen a lot and seen from different organizations and can offer some good feedback there. So Dennis Allen, most recently with the Saints, but definitely has a strong resume, 100%. Now, probably moving over, Derek, I'm just kind of going alphabetically here. It's kind of how I have it listed. But moving on to the guy that I think a lot of people look at currently, and they say he's probably the guy with probably the weakest resume, if you will. That, of course, is Ephraim Banda. Currently, right now, Derek, he is a safeties coach with the Cleveland Browns. And the last 2 seasons he's been in that role. He was at the college level. Before that, he's also been a guy that's, been in some schemes that have been pretty aggressive as well. But, Derek, he is the guy out of the 5 that has not had a defensive coordinator opportunity in the past. And so he just hasn't been able to show, can he be a defensive coordinator at the NFL level, right? And he's only been in the NFL 2 years. So when talking about it, he definitely stands out in terms of the lack of experience as a defensive coordinator and really at the NFL pro level.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It just being all those years in college and then, just starting to make your way into the NFL as of recently, it definitely is a little bit of a concern. And, we kind of talked about like, do we want somebody that's, this is going to be their first time? This is going to be their first time, doing something like this when we're struggling to have a DC already and we want to try to find somebody that's going to, actually know what they're doing, right? So that's the ultimate question you have here. Now, again, just because somebody's never done the job before doesn't mean they're not qualified for the job, but definitely is a little bit of a concern that they have to be more thorough with.
Yeah, 100%. Like, we just don't know right now with him, and I think where the Colts currently stand, where this current regime stands, this is why I was kind of a little bit surprised when the Colts interviewed him, because I kind of look at it and I say, you're in win now mode. Like, you have a lot to prove. Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, pretty much everybody in your team has a lot to prove. This is kind of like the do or die. I mean, you've heard it. Jim Irsay told Chris Ballard, fix it. So for me, I kind of look at that and I say, that screams to me finding a proven guy at the defensive coordinator position. That's what it screams to me. That would be like the logical thing here. So that's why I think when you look at it, that's why a lot of people have him at the bottom of the list, not because of anything he's done, but just frankly because of where the Colts currently are, and also the fact it's the biggest unknown right now is Banda. So, all right, let's continue on. There are 3 more names we got to talk about here, Derek, for this defensive coordinator position. The next guy I want to talk about has to be Lou Anarumo, most recently with the Cincinnati Bengals as their defensive coordinator. He was fired just recently after the Bengals really struggled, Derek, this year on defense, and were a big reason why the Bengals missed the playoffs this year. And he's definitely had a decent track record. He's had some good moments, like obviously the Super Bowl year. The defense was a big reason why Cincinnati got to that level and, had a really good defense that year. But he's also had some years where his defense hasn't been as great. So, you can debate all you want, the personnel and stuff like that. But when it comes to him and his resume, Derek, he's a guy that has been in the league for a while as well, has had some track record of success, but it's been a little bit more uneven as of recent.
Yeah, I mean, again, it kind of feels a little bit of the opposite of Dennis Allen when you look at it from the defensive coordinator position. Started out really hot with the Cincinnati Bengals. And then it seems like as the years have gone on, the defense has just continued to slip time and time again as it's gone on. I gave him the benefit of the doubt in the fact that the Cincinnati Bengals have been spending more of their time and money investing in the offense rather than the defense. And I do feel like that has, in some ways, really hurt Lou and his ability to do his job. Because just for like any defensive coordinator, you need to be able to have good players in order to be able to do your job. You can't just have all the offensive players and not have good defensive players and expect the defensive coordinator to be able to do his job very well. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt on that one, but no doubt, Cody, that, recent memory definitely puts a little bit of a stain on Lou's reputation.
And again, I'm sure he's a fine coach, Derek, but it's just hard for me. And even when you're trying to sell to fans, right? Like, how are you going to sell? Okay, it's almost like, and I know his scheme's different. I know it wouldn't be the same, but I think from some fans' perspective, it's like, that whole thing where it's like some sort of meme where basically the idea of it is like you take something off to put something on that's exactly the same. It would kind of feel like that in some ways, right? Where it just feels like you're not really doing anything. You're going from one struggling defensive coordinator to another. And it's kind of like, how can we get hyped for this? The Bengals defense was terrible last year. So again, I'm not saying that's completely 100% accurate and fair to Lou, but also I just think it's hard to sell when you see some of the numbers from the Bengals defense a year ago. It's hard to say that. So I totally understand if fans are kind of like, on him. And I do think there's more qualified in terms of recent success guys that I would prefer over him. So yeah, recency bias definitely is in his favor there. But two more guys we've got to talk about here, Derek. Steve Wilks is the next one. I think probably out of all these candidates, Derek, Steve Wilks is probably like the most safe guy and probably the least exciting guy out of any of these guys. I mean, he's kind of just like the definition of, all right, fine. Like, I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's kind of like a lukewarm hire, I suppose. That's how it would kind of, I think a lot of Colts fans would do it. Now, I know some Colts fans are higher on him. Some are lower. So to me, it kind of evens out in the middle where it's kind of like, I wouldn't hate it, but I probably wouldn't love it.
Right.
I think there's some other guys I'd prefer. I don't think he's in my top two, so it's kind of right in the middle when it comes to him.
I live on the edge, Cody. Give me hate or give me love. One or the other. I can't have a middle of the ground guy, man. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. And
to be fair to him,
I don't know. The thing is for him as a coach, he's coached in a lot of different places. Coached in a lot of different places and a lot of different backgrounds. Some places where, the defenses were all right. In some places, the defenses were good when he was there. They were good when he left it, So, I mean, it comes down to, how much credit do you give Steve Wilks, right? Like, obviously, the dude's been around the league, Cody, for the last, 30 freaking years, okay? So this guy knows a thing or two about NFL defenses. But then again, just because you've been around in something for very long doesn't always mean that you are the elite stuff at what you do. So, again, like you said, I wouldn't love the thing, but I wouldn't hate it. Definitely could see a lot worse hires than Steve Wilks.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, in the middle, like pretty lukewarm in a lot of ways. There's obviously ties to, the Colts organization and stuff, some guys he knows. So he would be interesting. I mean, to his credit, Derek, the 49ers defense in 2023, they were really good. I believe they were, let me pull this up. Yeah, they were fourth in the NFL in points per game allowed that season. So, I mean, he has had some success. He's been, a head coach, multiple stops. So, again, that's also something to consider when it comes to that. But, yeah, I mean, it's never been like the Dennis Allen, for example, where you look at that and you say, wow, the defense changed and it was clear it was under him because the 49ers have had a pretty good defense for a while. And yes, Steve Wilks deserves some of that credit, but I think you said it, you've had other guys that have also had success with that 49er defense. So yeah, I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's kind of in the middle.
Too, Cleveland defense was the same way.
Right.
So
yeah, but he deserves some credit, but yeah, I think that is, and that's also where I am with Lou. It's like, he doesn't deserve all the blame. But also, when you talk about how good they were, a couple seasons ago, he doesn't deserve all the credit. There's something in the middle there, right? Players have to go out and execute. coaches have to coach. So it's not completely on either good or bad. All right, let's move on to the final candidate, Derek. And I just freaking love this candidate. I can't contain it because I just think, Derek, frankly, this is the type of personality you need in this defensive locker room with all the guys that just, you saw it, Derek, just the lack of effort, the lack of just almost like wanting to play at a high level on the defensive side of the ball. I just think this guy would go in and straighten some things out. And he would not be afraid to call some guys out, which I think is needed. Of course, talking about Wink Martindale, currently Michigan's defensive coordinator. Derek, he's had a lot of different stops, whether with the Giants, with the Ravens, with a bunch of other teams, and he's had some success. And I think when you look at aggressive type of guys, I mean, Derek, if you're going to go out, I'd rather go out swinging. And he just gives me that vibe that he would be a guy that would have your back in a bar fight. Like, I just get that, man, with Wink Martindale. He's a little bit older, obviously, but he's been around for a while. He's had probably, him and Steve Wilks have had definitely the largest resumes and have been in the league for a long time. But I just think you need that on defense, Derek. You need a guy like Bruce Arians was with the Colts, where he is going to go in there and he is not going to hold back the punches. Like, he is going to call it as it is. He's either going to say, you're up to the standard or you're not. Mm-hmm. And Derek, if Shane Steichen's not going to be that guy, I almost think you need kind of an oil and water type of guy in terms of personalities. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they got to be able to work together, but you need a guy that's going to be, the bad guy, if you will. Good cop, bad cop. You need a guy that's not going to be afraid to get in guys' faces. Yeah. Obviously, he's not going to do it in a disrespectful way, but you need a guy that's not going to be afraid to hold the standard and not sway from that standard. Yep. And frankly, Derek, the Colts swayed from that standard this year with Gus Bradley. So it would be a breath of fresh air for me. I think you need that type of personality in this locker room. And I just think they do wonders for your culture, man. If you're really concerned and really want to fix this culture the best you can, what better guy than a guy that's going to call it for what it is? I mean, Derek, did you see Wink Martindale when he interviewed with the Colts? I don't know if you saw this or not. His comments when he didn't get the job, he said, there were some things I wanted to say that I didn't say. And I'm kind of like, I think he was talking about Gus Bradley. I think he was talking about Gus Bradley.
Can you guys tell who Cody wants? Can you tell? Can you please
tell?
The
more I check into it, I just love it, dude. Like,
hey, listen, everybody's got a specific coach that they want, man. And I totally get it. And Wink definitely has it. And Wink's a no-nonsense guy, man. He's lived a good life, man. He's older now. He ain't got to care about nobody's feelings about anything. He's old, man. He's lived a long life. He's been accomplished. He's been at the top. He knows what it's like. All right. So it's just one of those things where, he can definitely go about his business and do what he normally likes. And you're right. I mean, you almost trusted this guy enough to be able to, be your head coach. I mean, you interviewed the guy twice. There was obviously some interest there. And then, when you talk about if you were going to potentially give him a head coaching job, you might as well give him a chance to see what his DC abilities are like. Could very well be a possible thing. Like you said, I mean, it seems like that's kind of what this defense needs right now is that dog mentality again. And, if Wink Martindale is going to be the one to bring it out, then let it be him.
Why not, man? Why not? Like you said, you've already interviewed him. You already know. And again, I'm not saying that none of these other coordinators can do this because I think they definitely can. I just don't know a lot about some of these guys personality-wise enough to fully say, yes, they'll do this. But like Wink, I know he will do this. So whether it's him or not, Derek, I think you need a personality like that. That's going to do that. Because this culture is a mess right now. The accountability has lacked. Obviously, you've heard it from all these guys. And a type of fiery personality like that would be a breath of fresh air to this team. I really think it would be. So that's why I would like it, man. And like I said, if you're going to go out, even if you're not great this year on defense, I'd rather have a guy that's trying, and I know is trying, than have the bend don't break crap. I'm sick of that. We're all sick of that, Like, let's just get a guy in here who's not going to be afraid to be aggressive and attack and force offenses to actually react to you. A guy that's more on the Shane Steichen level, you know what I mean? Like a guy that's going to be in sync with how Shane likes to run his team and his operation. So I think any of these guys I'd be pretty happy with because they're all aggressive guys, come from aggressive backgrounds, and it's going to be a breath of fresh air, but we obviously have our favorites here. So any last thoughts, Derek, you have here on any of these candidates? Again, I know we did a list here on the main channel, so guys, go check that out if you haven't already. But Derek, any final thoughts here on these candidates?
Nope. I think that was pretty much it. And guys, if you haven't already could tell, Cody really likes Wink Martindale. All right.
I love it's almost like I like the scheme. I think he's had success. I love the aggression, dude. I think you need that. I do. You've had too many nice guys in this locker room right now. I mean, what did Chris Ballard say, Derek? I don't know the exact quote, but basically he said you don't have enough toughness. You don't have enough tough guys in your locker room. Who's the guy that's going to figure that out? I think a guy that's been seeing it for 20 plus years at the NFL level. That's my opinion. You can disagree with me. That's fine.
Hey, I'm not going to disagree with you, man.
Well, I know there are some people who do not like Wink Martindale. They're like, stay away from him. I understand that. There's reasons, but man, for all his faults, the more I talk myself into it, the more I'm like, why not, man? I mean, you're at the end of the rope almost. Like, if you don't do anything this season, then you might as well go out swinging, and get a guy that's going to at least try to fix this thing. So why not go get a guy like that? All right, guys. Well, that's our thoughts there when it comes to the different head coaches. Like we said, we've already ranked them. We've talked about them at length. So be sure to go check out that video. But guys, that'll do it for this one. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Be sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Help us get to 2,000 subs on this channel. We would greatly appreciate that. But guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.